Let me take you back. I think it was last summer or the summer before. Really, really hot outside, like humid and hot. And it was a match that was like for the underdogs, we had to win it. If we didn't win that match, we would have lost. We were like six down already, and there was nobody left except you. There were like two, three other players left. I'm on the pitch, and I'm like, how are we going to win this match? It's so hot and humid, have no energy. We're already short like two, three players. And then in comes Zia Anas, right? And I see him and he's limping. And I'm like, why is he limping? And he finally gets to the pitch and I see one of the buckles of the pads is broken. And I'm thinking outside that there's like 20 kits. Why did this guy on the most important match wear a pad that has a broken buckle? And in my you know how I am like a very energetic, passionate guy. So I'm furious inside. I'm like, what is wrong with this guy? Why is he doing that, right? And the match starts, and then what happens is we take a run, you come, you take your time, you tie the pad, this and that. Then you take another run, then you come on the side, you tie the pad, and the entire opposition team is frustrated. And they're like, it's boiling hot outside, it's humid, we're tired. Why is this guy taking so long? So after it came to the point where we almost won the match, I came up to you and I asked that question. I was like, Xiao, you couldn't find one pair of proper pads. I was like, Amish bhai, I was just trying to catch my air and and put these guys through this torture cell so that we won the match. And
That,
that's
that was all strategy, obviously, all
that,
strategy.
that was a genius strategy, and I had to commend you, and we won the match. And that's, believe it or not, one of the reasons why I brought you on the show was that.
Thank, thank,
Because we need a genius strategy for the poor. We need a Robin Hood accountant for this job.
there you go. There you go.
Now,
Good
before
stuff. I almost forgot that, but now that you have recalled me, I think I've used it a few times, quite a few times, against different.
now I've blown up your cover, so all the people who will watch it, they know like why Zia comes with a broken pad. Zia, I had a quick question before we start. I understand that you recently started your own accounting firm, accounting company. Just a quick information about that before we begin.
Yeah, yeah, sure, absolutely. So I'm a licensed CPA in the state of New Jersey since 2009, and back in 2016, me along with a friend of mine, we started our own CPA firm, and the motive was really to, in the beginning, just see. Where are the opportunities we can consolidate, as well as people who are not, I guess, like as educated or are not in a position to hire those fancy accountants, perhaps help them out. So the journey started really in 2016, and we're sitting in 2020. So I think we've done okay so far. We haven't shifted away from our main motive, which was to help individuals who don't have access to, I guess, like those fancy and expensive accountants.
So yeah, why would somebody choose like, or is your service mainly for the richer folks, but or is it for middle class as well? And if so, why would someone choose your firm over TurboTax or these type of other companies that are out there? What's the main advantage?
Yeah, absolutely. So, two questions you asked. First is, do we work with rich people or middle class or poor people? So we don't discriminate to begin with. Well, whoever is our client, we give them the service. Now, second question, it's a good one too. Why would someone choose us over off-the-shelf services such as QuickBooks or HR Block or whatever? And the answer is, first, you get the advice, you get the time that you deserve, right? You get the attention that you deserve. I have done social experiments by going into HR Block booth in the middle of Walmart. And what these guys do, they pick accountants off the street or people who don't have accounting background, but they're willing to just sit in that booth. And they put them through a 2 months training. And they tell them, hey, these are the questions when you ask people, and just fill those questionnaires out and put them in the system, and then system will tell you something, and just tell that or spell that out to the client. They don't really understand the concept. They're not going to be able to talk to you, hey, if you do this thing, perhaps you can save this much money, or you do that, perhaps there's a tax saving there.
Right.
So if you want that personal touch, if you want that attention, And if you want someone who can not only do your tax return but also strategize for you, then I guess that's where
The
we come.
financial planning aspect of it. That's good thing you brought up. So, recently I was watching a video from Grant Cardone. He's like a really big sales guy. And in that video, he mentioned that he had a private jet. And then they were like, they were talking about that. And in the middle of his conversation, he said something interesting that clicked. He said that I got this jet through my tax exemption, or a break that he got from his business expense, using it as a tax credit. So that's when I was like, oh wow, if he's doing this, can we leverage the same technique for the poor and the middle class by creating more money for them? Like, one of the major challenges people face is they don't have that extra money to invest into their business, and they're going paycheck to paycheck. So that's when I called you up, and I wanted to know your view on that can this strategy be used for middle class?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So I think the question is, if I have a business, can I use some of my legitimate business expense, which I guess under normal circumstances, without a business, I won't be able to write off? The answer is yes. God forbid, if you are working hard towards business and you have, let's say, two income, you also have a salary coming in. Your business, for some reason, incurs loss. You can transfer that loss over to your tax return against your salary income, reduce your salary income with that, as long as you're, I guess, like actively participating in that business. So there are different ways you can slice and dice and bring your tax liability down by leveraging some of your business income or losses.
Yeah, so yeah, bhai, I was sitting there and like trying to do some math and figure out the numbers, and for me, like I just couldn't. And I think this is the reason why most people know about it, but they don't get into it, because when they start doing the numbers, it just don't understand how it works. So I was wondering, I have like a really bad example, super simplified. I understand, because I'm more interested in the concept. So can we do a demo, and I'll show you the numbers that I was kind of putting together, and you can kind of tell me or guide me how to understand this. Would that work for you? Let me see if I can share
Yeah,
my screen. Okay, so you can see everything, right?
I can. Yes.
Okay. So what I had in mind is, let's say it's a single guy, no other obligations, nothing. Let's say he makes $100 an hour. That's the contract that he gets, right? So for 40 hour per week, this guy's making $4,000 per week,
Right.
which means for the year for the month he's making 16,000 per month, and for the year this guy's making about 192,000 per year. Now this thing is we're assuming January to December, but in our case, but since it's like from May to December, let's put 16,000 times 8 months, because from now till December is about 8 months. So in actuality, this would be 128,000. And then I'll start asking you my questions right after I put this little piece here for the audience. So right now, from 10,000 to 40,000, the tax rate is, I believe, 12%. From 40 to 85, it is 22. From 85 to 163, it's 24. And anything above is 32%. So now my first thing that I wanted to understand is, will the government be taxing me by 192 or 128 percentage bracket?
Right. It's the money you earn, right? So tax system is based on the cash system. So primarily based on the cash system. So if you have received money in 2020, and if it's 128,000, that's what you're going to get taxed on, or that's going to be your starting point.
Got it. So now let's say if I put my income, and I'm going to use layman terms so that I understand and others understand it. So I won't really use the accounting proper terms. Forgive me for that. And let's look at our taxes. What is left over, and my savings. So in this case, I have 128,000, and so let me just do a 24% of that. Am I going in the right direction so far?
Yeah, you are. One thing I would correct you on is our tax system is progressive. So as your income goes up, your tax bracket goes up, right? So when you say 128, you're not going to get taxed on 128 at flat 28% or 24%.
Mm.
It's a tiered approach. So your first 10,000 or 9,700 will get taxed at 10%. Your income between 9,700 to 39,475 will get taxed at 12%.
Oh, I didn't know
Right.
that.
So
Okay.
right. So it's a marginal tax rate that you'll have to consider, or the brackets that you'll have to consider. But for the simplicity's sake, for
Yeah.
this example, we can put whatever number.
Okay, yeah. So because we're more interested in the concept and numbers, people can. But thanks for pointing that out. I didn't know that. I'm gonna make that correction moving when I do a real one for my own self. But
Yep.
okay, so now 97 280 is what's left over. Now let's assume that out of this 97 280, 10% is what I save,
Okay.
and the rest of it I'm spending in my expenses.
Yep.
So all this 90% I spend towards expenses. Now the game that we're talking about here is that we have a side business.
Right.
Let's call it side business. Okay, so now in that, let's say that I take 5,000 as my, and income is zero right now. I'm gonna assume that we're not really making any money, but expenses wise, let's say I have two major expenses that we're gonna use this for this example: office expense and equipment. So one benefit that I was thinking is that, okay, office expense, if I have $1,500 I'm paying per month, 500 of that I could use towards my business, and say that I'm paying rent towards that. So some of that money from here I can pour into that 5K here. Can I do that?
Right. So it's a good question. Right? So if you are using an office space which you are using for both businesses in tandem, then the answer is yes. You can split the expense between two businesses. And if your question is, can I take what 97,000, which is leftover income from my business A, and can I write off the loss against business B? The answer is it depends, right? So for you to write off losses against any other type of income from a business, you have to be actively participating in those businesses, right? And the term actively is defined very loosely by IRS. So I guess there have been court cases where it has been interpreted as at least 500 hours a year as the floor. So let's say if you're spending 500 hours towards business A at least and 500 hours towards business B at least, then you're actively participating in both businesses. And yes, your income or your cash flow inflow from business A can offset some of the losses that you have from your business B.
Got it. And let's say another 5K I use not from my shared expense, but I use it to buy new equipment. So 5K I put here. So I got a
Right.
shared expense where people benefit, they'll buy a car or you can get a house or something like that, but you could use a shared expense, and this is non-shared. Now, what my next question was, okay, so I've spent 10,000 on my side business, so which means that my income now is gone down to 118.
Right.
118,000. So let's say now from 118,000, if I put 0.24, well, it would be 0.24, right? 24%, yeah.
Yeah, we can use.
Yeah, 28,320. Okay, so now minus 118,000, so that's 89,680. 89,680. What I wanted to understand, Ziad Bhai, was that in this scenario, how am I really? Because my when I look at my saving here, right? Am I really? Because my number is actually going down. What I hope to do was that I wanted to kind of maintain my savings at that, And at the same time, so one thing that was coming to my mind is that if I take into account here this 5,000, right? And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to validate my understanding. This 5,000 is actually I'm saving that money because it's already built into this expense, right? Because I'm not spending out of my pocket. So that means one is that I'll be getting that extra, saving that extra 5K.
Right. So let me walk you through. Right. So first, let's start with $128,000 of income you have, right? And you got to a net income or after expense income of 97,000. So first, I would question you on what are the expenses that you have been taking as part of that, whatever that 30,000 or 31,000 is, right? So that's the key area where a lot of people stumble and they miss a lot of legitimate expense that they should have claimed for business, but they don't. Um, so that would be my first question, right? So now, for example, the expenses that a lot of people ignore or they're not aware of that they can take, for instance, your use of personal car for your business, right?
Hmm.
If you are driving mileage, you can take that expense towards business. If let's say you have a dedicated space in your house, which you're using exclusively and continuously to run your business, then that portion of your house you can take an expense towards your business, right?
Hmm.
Um, you can, if you want to use the depending on if you choose to use the simplified method or the itemized method for that house deduction or home office deduction, you can also expense your utilities. You can expense your phone bill, your gas bill, electricity bill. Same thing with a personal cell phone. If you are using that for business purposes, you can expense that one. Right? So there's a laundry list of expenses that you can put towards business to legitimately, to lawfully bring that 97,000 that you have in your mind to a number which is less than that, right? So
Right.
that's the first thing, and that's where we come into to educate people and to tell them how can you reduce your gross income by claiming legitimate business expense.
Got it. And the second thing is that now over here on this side, I paid, the government took taxes on this 128,000, right? And they took this much, but at the end of the year when I file for the expenses and all that, the actual tax is going to be much less, so I will get a $2,400 credit on top of that. So that would get added here. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I think two different things. If you are a W-2 employee, then meaning you're an employee, not an independent contractor, then yes, your salary is subject to withholdings, and then in that case, the home office or the car mileage I described that won't be applicable. But if you're an independent contractor, then you can ask your employer or whoever's paying you to deduct taxes on your behalf and deposit on your behalf. But more often than not, they won't do that, right? So they will just give you a 1099, which is for independent contractors, and that will become your starting point, right? And on that, then you'll have to calculate the taxes yourself. And like I mentioned earlier, once you reduce your income by legitimate expenses, and if you have a side business which you're also materially participating in, you have the ability to for the expenses that you are incurring jointly for both of those businesses, you have the ability to transfer expense over from one business to the other. And let's say if you're saying I'm transferring 5,000 over to the other business and taking income from here and setting off loss from the other business, then mathematically speaking, if you are in 24% tax bracket, then whatever 24% of 5,000 will be your tax saving.
So I guess if I had to like sum it up now, the game here is that on one side you're taking your personal expenses and you're leveraging off of that for your business expense, and at the same time you're using that expense to lower your income on the book side on paper, which then reduces the taxes for you, and you may then have a tax credit advantage at the end on top of that as well. Is that correct?
That is correct, right? So, look, I think that the starting point is yes, you may deem some of those expenditures or some of those expenses as your personal expenses, but you may not know that. Let's say you're driving this car for your business purposes, right? So technically, yes, it's your personal car, but the tax law allows you to take deduction against your business for those personal car mileage. You just have to keep track of how much was for business, right? Similarly, I gave you an example of the house or the home office deduction. So you can take credit for those to reduce your taxable income.
I got it. Okay. So Ziad bhai, thank you so much for validating this for me. Like I was not sure if I'm thinking right, but conceptually, do you think this is correct?
Yes, yeah. So I think some of the rates are a little off, but no biggie. And the thing to understand is you have a business which you're actively participating in, materially participating in. You have legitimate expenses, which maybe you are considering your personal expenditures, but perhaps you're using your car, your house for business purposes. You can reduce your income by those. If you have a side hustle where you're also actively participating, perhaps more than 500 hours a year, and you are incurring some loss there, you can offset that loss from business B against income, whether it's like a salary income or income from business A.
So now, what are some of the things that you would tell people or advise them to watch out when they're doing their taxes to not fall into areas which could get them in trouble because of the law?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think the short answer is don't be greedy, right, and be fair.
Mhm.
Um, so I used two examples with you, and I'll continue on those two examples. For example, first one is car mileage, right? So let's say if you are running the business and you have a normal commute from point A to point B, that's your part of normal commute, so you shouldn't be expensing that. But let's say if you have meetings which are not part of your normal commute, or if you work from home, you have to go offsite to meet a client, keep a record of that, right? And keep a logbook. There are free applications available that you can download to track your mileage. Um, and just be accurate with your record keeping. So a lot of people, they don't do that. They arbitrarily pick a number, and since they see, hey, every more mile I claim, I get 55, 58 cent deduction from government. So let me just like rack up those mileage. Now, IRS agents, if they pick up your tax return, they're smart. They know, they have data from God knows millions of people who are in your situation, and they know what is the average expense, right? Or what are the average car mileage. If you get greedy and just start adding those numbers in arbitrarily, there's a likelihood that your return will get picked up and you will get audited. And if you can prove the legitimate use, they will come back and levy high penalties and interest on you.
You know, in one of my shows before, one of these upcoming entrepreneurs, they advised me to get like a QuickBooks software where it connects with your banking account, and then you can pull in the transactions, and legally it will have a good trail for you to keep a track of, even if it was a coffee in there. That way you can get away from, when you have to have an audit trail, you have like a back and check with everything, every transaction you made. So that might be another. Ziad, you were about to say something?
No, no, I was going to say you're right. QuickBook has this ability where you can link your bank account, your credit card account to the software, and every day when you incur expenditure, it will automatically be downloaded to your QuickBooks software, and then you can categorize based on the nature of the expense. So that's a good way to keep track. There are other softwares too. QuickBook is one of them.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's a good way to be organized if you are self-employed and running a small business.
Now, Zia, if somebody wants to get in touch with you for your services, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Look, you can pass my contact info to them. You have my cell number, which is 718-496-1834. I can be reached via email, which is zia@zgcpas.com. It's zia, Z-I-A, at zgcpas.com.
Thank you so much, Zia. Thank you for your time. I know you're a busy guy. I really appreciate your time.
No worries, no worries. Amish, my pleasure talking to you.
Have a wonderful day.
You take care.